Time is now 9:38 a.m. and a quorum of the board is present. State Board of Education meeting of April 12, 2022 is called to order. The first item on the agenda is the approval of agenda in order of priority. Are there any items board members would like to add or delete from the agenda? Before we do that, if we could, I'd like to offer condolences to Board Member Lipton, who has lost another family member and will have to leave the meeting in the afternoon. As an accommodation, I'd like to recommend that we move the approval of educator preparation program moratorium extension and discretionary authority to accept proposals for the late morning immediately following the presentation on school finance research studies. I also recommend that a NASB award nomination of a state board member who's retiring from the board and approval of meeting minutes follow immediately the lunch recess. Are there any objections to those? Hearing none, we'll accept them as friendly amendments to the agenda. Any other motions to the agenda?
Yes.
Mr. McMillan.
I submitted, as per the request, 24 hours in advance, a resolution I'd like to add as item X, or Roman numeral 10M. Although with the recent changes, I'm not sure if it's still M, but let's just say it's M. Resolution asking for the removal of divisive reference in Governor Whitmer's Michigan blueprint.
So we have a motion to amend the agenda. Do we have a second to amend? We have a motion by Mr. McMillan, a second by Ms. Snyder.
Speak to the amendment?
Speak briefly to it going on the agenda, not
Yes.
so much to the content.
Okay. Well, this is a resolution. I think the public should know what I'm trying to get on the agenda. It is. It says, whereas one of the high-level actions in the wellness, it should say wellness section of Governor Whitmer's so-called blueprint for comprehensive student recovery includes a link to www.mhanational.org/racial-trauma that states in the quote, in the U.S., Black, Indigenous people of color, BIPOC, are most vulnerable due to living under a system of white supremacy, end quote. Whereas at the June 8th, 2021 State Board of Education meeting, Governor Whitmer's chairperson of the committee that created the Michigan Blueprint, Kevin Polston, was unwilling to describe why the Michigan Blueprint included the declaration that a system of white supremacy exists in Michigan, whereas Mr. Polston confirmed at the June 8, 2021 meeting that the over $5 billion of federal education COVID relief monies Michigan received is and will continue to be spent with the guidance of the Michigan Blueprint, whereas telling Caucasian students that their Caucasian parents are a part of an oppressive white supremacist system in Michigan is harmful to students and our society, whereas telling Caucasian students, including elementary students, that they themselves are a part of an oppressive white supremacist system in Michigan is harmful to students and our society. Therefore, be it resolved, the Michigan State Board of Education does not believe that students throughout Michigan should be told in classrooms that they are living in a system of white supremacy. Be it further resolved, the State Board of Education strongly urges Governor Whitmer to renounce the notion that a system of white supremacy exists throughout Michigan and that she remove www.mhanational.org/racial-trauma linked page in wellness high leverage action section of her Michigan Blueprint. And I just offer this. I hope that we as a board can come against these kind of divisive, harmful messages. And I would really think that it would be beneficial for us to come out and oppose this because it's something that is just it's a message that I hope we all can agree is not something that we want kids to be looking at each other and worrying about the color of their skin as opposed to the content of their character, which is just the exact opposite of what Martin Luther King Jr. had hoped for. And so this is directly in opposition to that, and I just hope that we can support some kind of this resolution. So I ask that you would support including it on the agenda. Thank you.
So the motion, we have a motion and a second to include the resolution for consideration on the agenda. This is not a motion on the merits of the motion. It is a motion to include the motion on the agenda. Marilyn, if you would please do a roll call vote.
Lipton?
No.
McMillan?
Yes.
Pritchett?
No.
Pugh,
No.
Snyder,
Yes.
Strayhorn,
No.
Tilly, absent. Albridge, absent. Motion fails.
Okay, so are there any other motions before the board? Hearing none, may I please have a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
We have a motion by Dr. Pritchett. Do we have a second?
Support.
Support by Dr. Pugh. Any discussion? Hearing none, if we could have a roll call vote.
Lipton,
Yes.
McMillan,
No.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
Snyder,
No.
Strayhorn,
Yes.
Tilly, absent. Albridge, absent. Motion fails.
Right. We'll take a 15-minute recess, and we'll be back to approve the agenda in 15 minutes. It's 10:04 a.m. We are reconvening at this point. I have a motion to move the agenda with the movement of the GSRP presentation until the afternoon so that we can flow forward from there. We have a director from Leo here, can move forward in that fashion. Do I have a motion similarly situated? Dr.
So moved.
Pritchett, a motion. Do I have a second?
Support.
Support from Dr. Pugh.
Discussion.
Discussion?
I just wanted to point out that we had to wait 20 minutes simply because Democrats did not want to come out and address this notion. They wanted to continue this idea that we live in a white supremacist society, and I think that it's harmful, and I think it's a shame, and I think this last 20 minutes, that's the only reason we had to wait for this, because we certainly would have approved the agenda had we put this on and gotten rid of this cancerous idea that's harming our kids.
Thank you very much. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
I'm sorry, I would like to share as well, and I think Pam had her hand up as well. Would you like to go first?
Excuse me. Thank you. You're recognized.
Thank you. This is not the first time this has happened. This is an absolute reflection of how unwilling our board members that do not vote for resolutions to get on the agenda. Yes, you're in charge of the agenda, but it's an absolute reflection of a lack of negotiation and willingness to work with each other and to listen to what people have to say in the state of Michigan.
Thank you very much, Ms. Snyder. Dr. Pugh.
It is good that we can go ahead and get the business of our children and education system back on track. I just want to say that this is another attempt at two board members that choose to hijack the agenda to get a divisive agenda, try to put that and move that forward. They knew that that was not going to move forward, and it's just an attempt to get attention, and unfortunately it's at the expense of the business of our children. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you very much. Roll call vote, Marilyn.
Lipton,
Yes.
McMillan,
No.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
Snyder,
No.
Strayhorn,
Yes.
Tilly. Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on the Committee of the Whole agenda is presentation by Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity on Goal 6 to increase the percentage of adults with a post-secondary credential. This presentation focuses on Michigan's top 10 strategic education plan goal to increase the percentage of adults with a post-secondary credential. This work overlaps with the work of the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. Our LEO partners are here to share information on efforts to improve post-secondary credential attainment rates. This is an information presentation. No board action is required. Director Corbin, we appreciate your joining us today, or rejoining us in a fashion after decades away.
Yes.
We welcome our presenters, Dr. Susie Carnell, Chief Deputy Superintendent of the Michigan Department of Education, Director Susan Corbin, Director of the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, and Ms. Sarah Sherpicki, Director of the Office of 60 by 30. There will be a PowerPoint presentation. Presenters, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rice. Good morning, members of the State Board of Education. We are here today to provide an update on Goal 6, to increase the percentage of adults with a post-secondary credential. While there are many who believe that the department's work is focused primarily on pre-K through 12 education, it is through several efforts within the department that we serve students beyond grade 12. That said, the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, otherwise known as LEO, does more in the post-secondary realm. LEO's efforts include the governor's 60 by 30 to have 60% of Michigan adults with a post-secondary credential by the year 2030. Here today, please welcome Director Corbin from LEO and Ms. Sherpicki, who will share information about the multiple efforts LEO provides in support of Goal 6.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you today and to talk about how the work that we're doing is so closely aligned with one of your significant strategic goals. Dr. Rice alluded to my returning to the building. I've had my career in state government, and I'm very fortunate to say that in the past I had an opportunity to work in the Department of Education, and it's nice to see a couple of familiar faces that were here when I was here in the year 2000. And also, I've had the opportunity to serve on my local school board, so I certainly understand how critical the work that you do here is so important to all of Michigan's children. So thank you for the opportunity to be with you today. So all of the work that we do in LEO is tied to our mission and vision. We're hyper-focused on equitable paths and opportunities that will make Michigan a great place to live, work, and play. When the governor created our department, she had a vision. She charged us with promoting economic opportunity and prosperity, ensuring that efforts in Michigan are coordinated, evidence-based, equitable, and customer-focused. Despite all the challenges the last 2 years have brought our way, we continue to look ahead to ensure that we have a strong foundation for long-term economic recovery moving forward. And I believe that we've got the right team to make that happen. Dr. Rice introduced Sarah Sherpicki, our new Director of Office of 60 by 30. Now that we have all of the right players on our team, working with key partners and economic experts, we've updated our strategic plan to focus on 5 key areas. Educate Michiganders and grow the middle class by removing barriers to employment. We ask ourselves, are we supporting education, training, on-ramps, certifications to make sustainable wages more attainable? Are we addressing barriers that include housing, transportation, healthcare, childcare, language, and placement? Are we addressing talent shortages in current and future growth sectors in every region of the state? Create better jobs and support small business? We want to become the benchmark of economic development by supporting the creation of good and promising jobs that make Michigan's economy more resilient while implementing the state's first small business strategy that includes focusing on micro businesses. We want to address talent shortages in current and future growth sectors in every region of the state. Closing equity gaps, prioritizing the closure of socioeconomic and demographic opportunity gaps in all of our decision making. Protect and enhance health, safety, and economic security for workers, ensuring safe working conditions, fair wages, and labor protections. And building strong communities so that we all have great places to live. We believe we need to create a strong foundation for communities to grow by making historic investments in broadband, housing, and other critical infrastructure, investing in developing vibrant places with rich amenities. To further drill down, we're focusing the organization on 4 key metrics, all of which include a commitment to closing equity gaps. We're addressing the ALICE rate. Are we driving down the ALICE rate? Are we creating safety nets to provide stability and preventing people from falling into the ALICE population? Are we driving down cost drivers like housing, childcare, and broadband? And of course, as I'll go into further shortly, we're focused on post-secondary attainment and our goal of 60 by 30. We're looking at household income growth, our programs and services supporting good and promising jobs that provide living wages and benefits, creating an overall net positive for all of our communities. And we're focused on labor force growth. Are we promoting policies and programs that engage people to stay in, to re-enter, or join Michigan's labor force? Are we ensuring safe, healthy, and secure workplaces so that people do not fall out of the labor force? With all the components of our strategic plan, we believe these are all critical for Michigan's economic success. So today I wanted to drill down specifically on the work that we're doing in the Office of 60 by 30. As you may recall, early in her administration, Governor Whitmer boldly called for a 60% statewide attainment rate by 2030. As of today, attainment reported by the Lumina Foundation is 49.1%. It's a modest climb from the 45% we were at when the governor announced the goal, but we're still lagging when compared to the national average. In order to meet that statewide goal, we know that we need to accelerate our progress. Today, with Governor Whitmer, with our colleagues in the state legislature, we're working to put a college degree or a skills certificate within reach for more adults in Michigan. Everyone in Michigan has a right to an educational path to success. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. Whether that's a certificate in the skilled trades, an apprenticeship, an associate's degree, or a bachelor's degree. Based on our pre-pandemic data, we knew that we were in a very tight labor market with more job openings and fewer unemployed Michiganders than at any point in the 21st century. With an acute talent shortage in high-skill areas such as IT, computer science, healthcare, engineering, increasingly jobs are going unfilled because Michiganders don't have the post-secondary credentials required to fill them. Our continuous work to effectively track labor market data is essential to establishing a baseline of where we need to direct our resources to create prosperity for all. As we work to move the needle forward, we're focused on making progress towards our 60 by 30 goal, but also making sure our educated people meet the talent needs of employers with by helping us attain our goals. And then also addressing equity gaps in our educational outcomes. As I said earlier, the aim is to have 60% of working age Michiganders with a degree or a skills certificate by the year 2030. 60 by 30 seeks to build a better Michigan in 3 ways: closing the skills gap that we believe poses the single greatest threat to the success of our businesses and our state's prosperity. Jobs requiring skilled employees today, as well as jobs on the horizon, demand greater education and training than ever before. Increasingly, the best jobs require more than a high school diploma. Increasing opportunity and access to the education and skills that create opportunities for better jobs and bigger paychecks, and making Michigan more competitive for inclusive economic growth. We want to bring Michigan closer to helping businesses fill critical talent needs by ensuring Michiganders are put on a path to earn post-secondary credentials needed to fill those high-demand, high-wage jobs. So, how do we get there? With the focus on our state's economic competitive and prosperity, we know that 60 by 30 isn't just about credentials. Earning a degree or a skills certificate beyond high school is the first step when it comes to building a healthy and more competitive economy in our state. And it's the first step for Michiganders to have the tools and opportunities they need for a better job and bigger paychecks. Through our 60 by 30 programs, we'll close the skills gap, increase economic opportunity, and fundamentally change the state's economic competitiveness. Our journey to 49.1% credential attainment has not always been easy. Michigan Reconnect, a key component to reaching our 60 by 30 goal, was one of Governor Whitmer's signature programs announced during her first State of the State address. The Senate approved funding for Michigan Reconnect March 11th, the day after we discovered our first two COVID-19 cases. And then the House approved funding for Reconnect on March 12th, and then it was presented to the governor on March 17th for her signature. As we started to realize the economic hardships our state would be facing, the governor was forced to veto her very own key program in order to get out emergency financial support. This led us eventually to Futures for Frontliners program. We were the first in the nation to utilize federal GEAR dollars, the governor's emergency education relief fund from the CARES Act, to create a pathway for essential workers during the pandemic to receive a tuition-free path to community college. Once the fiscal year wrapped up and we were in a better place financially, the governor and strong bipartisan legislative leaders worked together to invest $30 million for more than 4.1 million Michiganders aged 25 and up to earn an associate's degree or skills certificate. Despite having all hands on deck, utilizing state and federal funds, partnering with key stakeholders, we know these efforts alone aren't enough to get us to our goal of 60% of Michiganders with a post-secondary credential or certificate by 2030. Using data we receive from LMI, we can get a good picture into the future to proactively monitor labor and market trends while staying laser focused on credential completion rates and attainment forecast. I think we can say that we all know that we need to boost college enrollment rates among traditional age students right out of high school and working age adults, dramatically improve credential completion rates, particularly among community colleges, keep our talent here in Michigan, ensuring those that graduate from our institutions stay here in Michigan, and attract educated workers to Michigan to fill our most in-demand jobs. We put together a digital hub, michigan.gov Skills to Work, to connect residents with online learning opportunities and other training resources. Whether people are looking to return to work, explore in-demand careers, learn new skills, or take the first step toward a degree or certificate, the site has information to help Michigan workers expand their opportunities in an evolving economy. This includes a partnership with Modern States and College Board to increase education opportunities and accelerate Michigan's 60 by 30 initiative by offering free college credit opportunities now available to Michigan residents. All of those details are available on this website. In September of 2020, as I mentioned, we launched the Futures for Frontliners initiative to help Michigan workers and their families during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic by providing a tuition-free pathway to college or a technical certificate to essential workers who do not have a college degree. These are people who were on the front line at the beginning of the pandemic when there was so much uncertainty and we knew so little about this virus. Futures for Frontliners also provided GED classes and preparation to adults without a high school diploma or equivalency, putting them on a path to career success. The program is the first of its kind in the country and was inspired by the federal government's support of soldiers returning from World War II by providing educational opportunities. This was a community-driven effort to provide new opportunities to frontliners. While the window to apply for and utilize the scholarship has ended, we're pleased to see that tens of thousands of people took advantage of this opportunity and the graduation numbers continue to grow. The interest in the Futures for Frontliners program far exceeded our expectations. During the September to December deadline, we received over 120,000 applications. Here's just a quick look at the overall application numbers and demographic breakdown. Like Futures for Frontliners, the aim for Michigan Reconnect is to make it easier and more affordable than ever for adults with some or no college experience to earn a post-secondary degree. Reconnect launched this February to expand that tuition-free path, and we already have more than 95,000 Michigan adults who've applied for this scholarship and nearly 16,000 who have enrolled in community colleges. This new scholarship program offers an historic tuition-free opportunity for more than 4.1 million Michiganders who are eligible for this program. And again, with Michigan Reconnect, our expectations have been exceeded. After the February 2nd launch, we wanted to reach 60,000 applications by Memorial Day, and we exceeded that goal by mid-March. As I mentioned, we currently have 95,000 applications, and here is a quick look at the overall demographic breakdown of those 95,000 applicants. What's most rewarding about these programs for those of us who are working behind the scenes is hearing all of the success stories. And it really is incredible to hear the success stories and to know, just in your daily life, how frequently you run across people who are taking advantage of these two signature programs. Marilyn Deere was recently featured in mynorth.com article. She graduated at the age of 70. She has 5 children and 11 grandchildren, and she's among the thousands who are ready to finish their degree and can do so with the help of Michigan Reconnect Scholarship Program. And she was hired into a new job, a new marketing job, before she had even graduated. In addition to the community college path, Michigan Reconnect has also offered a limited time opportunity to help adult learners pursue skills training with a private training provider or program. To date, more than 80 participants have earned credentials through this opportunity. And here's a broader look at the data of the 3,000 applicants who were accepted into the Skills Scholarship path of Reconnect. The path to enrolling and graduating from college, we all know, can be challenging. To help meet our goal and provide students with the critical support they need to successfully enroll in classes and complete a skills certificate or associate degree, we've hired navigators. We've invested $430,000 with the Michigan College Access Network College Completion Corps to also support Michigan adult students. Navigators offer Michigan Reconnect applicants a network of support and guided assistance while they take the required steps to successfully enroll in college and participate in the Michigan Reconnect Scholarship Program. These outreach and support professionals are critical investments in helping applicants every step of the way to successfully complete a certificate or a degree program. The navigators reach out to all Reconnect applicants, and they're actively working with over 16,000 Reconnectors. While the Future for Frontliners and Michigan Reconnect efforts were a $54 million combined investment, we realize that tuition is not the only barrier many of our adults face. They need support with critical necessities like housing, childcare, transportation, and more. That's why the governor has made it a priority to also include $15 million in her supplemental budget request for wraparound services to support frontliners and reconnectors. Leverage the American Rescue Plan to ensure reconnectors are connected to this subsidy. Expanding SNAP eligibility to college students facing food insecurity. And launching a tri-share childcare program to divide the cost of childcare equally between employers, their employees, their employer, and the state of Michigan. In addition to these programs, I also wanted to touch on the Going Pro Talent Fund and the significant investments that help employers with training, developing, and retaining current and newly hired employees through the Going Pro Talent Fund. Like the Reconnect program, this program has strong bipartisan support, and neither of these programs could happen without the strong support that we have from our legislators. The Going Pro Talent Fund helps individuals secure employment, industry-recognized credentials, and strong wages by providing training grants to Michigan businesses to support employees in high-demand, skilled trade industries. Since the program's launch, Going Pro Talent Fund has provided training for more than 121,000 Michigan workers, supporting the needs of over 40,000 businesses, upskilling the workforce, and contributing to the increase in post-secondary credentials, supporting the governor's 60 by 30 educational attainment goal. So, as you can see, there are a wide variety of programs and services within the 60 by 30 portfolio. But all of them have a single shared goal, and I'm so happy that it's a goal that we are sharing with all of you.
Thank you, Director Corbin, for the updates, and congratulations to Ms. Sherpicki on your new role. At this point in the presentation, I will briefly share 6 MDE efforts to increase the percentage of adults with a post-secondary credential. 4 focus on the students, and 2 focus on the educator. Number 1, the Office of Career and Technical Education supports Goal 6 through the implementation of 10 newly recognized post-secondary credentials. 2, also within the Office of Career and Technical Education, they support, or through the department, support the early, middle college, high school opportunities for students. And this program blends high school and post-secondary coursework and credits. Through the Office of Educational Support, this office leads the department's efforts in advanced placement classes and college-level examination programs, allowing students to gain college credits. Our Office of Special Education, number 4, supports Goal 6 through Student Outcome Resources. This effort is for students ages 16 and above, and the purpose of this effort is to ensure coordination of transition services across agencies for students with special needs who are transitioning out of high school. These 4 efforts are also part of Goal 4, expand secondary learning opportunities for all students. More information will be shared in the coming months during our State Board of Education Strategic Education Plan presentation on Goal 4. Sorry. So now let's focus on the educator. There are 2 efforts that support Goal 6. These efforts include expansion of the pipeline of credentialed educators. And number 2, the expansion of educational opportunities such as Future Proud Michigan Educator Launch Program through our Career Technical and Education Office, and grants to districts to grow your own through the Office of Educator Excellence. These programs are for students who are interested in careers to become educators. Lastly, the department is thankful for the partnership with Leo and the Governor's 60 by 30. Board members, I hope you found this presentation on Goal 6 informative. This concludes our presentation, and now I will turn it back to Dr. Rice. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Carnell, Director Corbin, Ms. Shapicki, welcome. Any questions or comments from board members? Questions or comments? Mr. McMillan.
Director Corbin, or all 3 of you, thank you for presentation. Director Corbin, I look at slide number 6 and it talks about strategic focus areas, and I appreciate removing barriers to employment, but when I was in the legislature, I saw special interest always erecting barriers to keep out competition. So I was wondering, is there an effort to remove burdensome licensing from those that want to start their own businesses? That would be, I was just curious, is that an area that you're focusing on? There's a lot of licensing and barriers that, in the name of customer safety, really keeps out competition. And so I found industries wanting more regulation so that it would be harder for people to just start their own businesses.
The department that is most, that is primarily engaged in licensing and regulation is the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs. We certainly, work with that department on initiatives that overlap. For example, our Office of Global Michigan, works with New Americans, and we're working on helping New Americans overcome barriers to become licensed in Michigan so that they, can transition into a good-paying job. That's one example where we're working on, removing barriers.
To just New Americans or all Americans?
New Americans who are, new to Michigan, who might have been licensed in the country that they were coming from.
Okay.
Helping them overcome barriers so that they can become licensed in Michigan.
Okay, and then in the same slide, it says create better jobs and support small businesses. During the protocols that were imposed on businesses didn't seem to harm as much the big businesses. We all saw the fast food and all that, but it was the small businesses that were being shut down from the proven ineffective and burdensome COVID protocols. Have you been working to try to reestablish those? That we see a ton of mom and pop businesses that have been shut down, and the big corporations didn't. Are you helping them kind of try to reestablish?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all agree with you. Small businesses were disproportionately impacted during the pandemic. There were a number of programs that were supported by the Michigan Economic Development Corporation that got, grant dollars out to small businesses. We, more directly in Leo, had grant programs. We worked with the Small Business Association and created a grant program to help small businesses winterize so that they could, provide greater customer opportunities outside during the winter. We also created an ambassador program. We had experts who were available to employers to tour their businesses to make sure that they were doing everything that they needed to do to protect their employees and their customers from COVID. But I think you're going to see an even greater emphasis on economic activities related to supporting small businesses. In their strategic plan, MEDC has created a much stronger focus around providing support to small businesses and Main Street businesses. And in fact, they've created a new position which is posted right now with MEDC that, the primary focus of that person is working on programs that support small businesses across the state.
Final question, I don't know, to any three of you. I think studies I show in higher ed, and we're talking about post-secondary education, those that are professors and other college instructors are politically liberal 4 times as much as conservative, to up to 11 times. Is there any interest in equity in this area where there'd be more equity in, more conservative instructors and college professors as opposed to the inequity that's going on right now?
I think that's kind of an issue outside of, my scope of work right now.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. McMillan, Director. Ms. Snyder, and then Dr. Pritchett.
Director Corbin, I'll just direct this to you as sort of a piggyback from the last thing he said. We spoke about equity and equitable today. Definition of that is fair and impartial. Separate from you is a discussion we had this morning to try to get on the agenda something that our governor has in her educational blueprint, which is a citation that we live in a white supremacy system. I really appreciate the concept of 60 by 30, which is something she also supports. But what I see when we also have a governor that supports this citation within our educational system, you're here today to present, and those things overlap. It's a significant barrier to true equity. When we use hate, contempt, and bias to encourage, the division of groups of people, to me, I think it inevitably impacts the participation and support that programs like this will receive. And so I just, sincerely ask you from a program director perspective, please dismiss that reference in her educational blueprint. It's not going to do anyone in the state of Michigan good. And this, I think, is a good program. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ms. Snyder. Dr. Pritchett.
Thank you. First of all, I appreciate the fact, and as I have followed this program, that there is bipartisan support for it, and as there should be. Ironically, I am familiar with a couple of individuals who've actually been part of the Michigan Reconnect. I'm interested in the navigators because I do know that because of those outside forces, the child care issues, transportation issues, just issues of access, that sometimes it becomes more than just signing up for a class and going to the class and passing it. There's these outside factors going on. So you indicated that each one of these navigators would be assigned so many individuals, and their job would be to, quote unquote, connect with them. How would they do that? Would they, is that once a semester? What happens if the individual decides I can't do this anymore? I'm going to take a step back.
Yeah, I'll let Sarah, since Sarah manages the navigators, I'll let her take that and talk about, all of the other resources that we have supporting our reconnectors.
Yeah, so the navigators have really large sort of initial caseloads, and we do really regular outreach to folks as they sign up for Reconnect. To a certain extent, it does require the person on the other end of the outreach to engage, but the navigators make themselves available. They email, they call, they text, they have, a whole set of appointments available each week. So every time they send out an email, they say, go ahead and book an appointment with me. And I've just been getting to know the navigators because this is my 4th week, and they are extraordinary. I mean, they go above and beyond to kind of connect anyone who wants to help them navigate sort of any challenge that's coming in their lives, whether that's like difficulty figuring out which courses to register for on the sort of path that they're interested in, or like, I don't know what I'm going to do about childcare. It's like not working out for my schedule. And so what the navigators also do is build relationships with certain community colleges. So each navigator has a set of colleges that they're responsible for sort of maintaining the relationship with. And so they're able to help the students find the people on campus who can, support them with whatever their need is. And they also build relationships with the sort of community organizations in that area who can provide additional support. And so I just was talking with a navigator yesterday who found a student who was like, on it. They've got everything figured out and they don't have the money for books. They've got 4 kids and a strapped budget, and they were able to pair them with a resource in Detroit who was able to cover their books so that they can complete their education. So they really serve as like a linchpin of resources for the students.
I want to mention another strong partnership that we have forged, directly related to Reconnect, and that's with the local Michigan Works agencies.
Okay.
They're also a resource for students, not only helping, give advice about, career opportunities in their local region, but they also are a place where students get connected to those types of support services that remove barriers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pritchett. Mr. Strayhorn.
Sure, I appreciate this presentation. It was very well thought out, put together. I looked at slide 19 where you talked about the Reconnect applicants, and you had a goal of 60,000 by, what did you say, Labor Day?
By Memorial Day, we were hoping, yeah.
But you hit 95,000 by mid-March. So what is it that you're doing from a marketing standpoint to get to all these applicants? So is there something there besides just Michigan.gov, obviously?
Yeah, we did kind of a tour around the state. We did a series of press events, and those press events included, the local person from the local community college, also some key legislators, from those regions who were critical to the Reconnect program. Information on our website. We've not spent a lot of money on marketing. I think, with Sarah in the role, she might have some additional thoughts in terms of what we have been discussing. There are 4.1 million people in Michigan who are eligible for Reconnect. So when you think of it in terms of that, 95,000, was incredible, but it's still just a small percentage of people in Michigan who are eligible for a program like this.
Yeah, I do think we'll be investing again in outreach. I think, as Director Corbin pointed out, like there's still a whole bunch of people in Michigan who maybe didn't hear about Reconnect yet who would be interested. So I think that uptake in its sort of first launch just shows like, Michiganders are hardworking and they're hungry for, opportunity. And so when we create this, there's a big uptake.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Strayhorn. Ms. Tilley, you get the benediction.
Thank you for the presentation. I was very happy to see the rollout of these programs during the pandemic. I think it was very important for Michiganders to have these opportunities, especially at that time. I'm a former director of community and economic development. I want to say one of the areas I think that really needs growth, because I had to partner with Leo in that role. And one of the areas that really needs growth is programs and tools and resources for small businesses in community and economic development. And I think there's an opportunity to help our youth get more engaged in those areas. And I think that's really an opportunity to get them excited about their own communities, and giving them the resources to expand and develop their ideas, or, surrounding how they want to see their communities. And I do want to say, as in reference to the whole, Governor Whitmer putting white supremacy on the website, I think that's needed. We need to be vocal about it. There are not only African Americans, but other minorities, children, parents in this state that have suffered from white supremacy. And to ignore it or pretend that it does not exist is an injustice in itself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have 60 seconds, Dr. Pugh.
Yeah, but we wasted like 40 minutes at the beginning of the meeting, so.
60 seconds.
Thank you. So, first of all, I do want to take my time and make sure that when we talk about small businesses, yes, our small businesses do need help. And I want to make sure that we continue to iterate here that Governor Whitmer nor anyone at this table caused what proliferated that help that is now needed by those small businesses. It was people that were sick, dying, and those trying to stop the deadly disease. And I'm sorry that you have to hear that. But then also, I want to make sure that, just speaking to the presentation, it was a great presentation, great work, and thank you for this. My thoughts are around the parent participation, or parents. Are we engaging parents as we are dealing with our parent engagement activities? There's several parent programs. And are we engaging parents at that time around these different programs that we have? So whether we're talking about Great Start to Readiness programs where we're engaging parents, and when we have that captive audience and making sure that they know that this is available. The other thing that I was thinking about as you were presenting is yesterday, Lake Michigan College did an event around student loan debt. And we know that there are especially women that have student loan debt, and often men as well will drop out of college as a result of that. And are we engaging in those conversations as we're talking about how to reconnect with our residents that we want to make sure that they can take part in these opportunities?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm still learning about all of the sort of what has happened so far, but I would say it is absolutely top of mind for me. I think there's great research that suggests looking at folks intergenerationally is a really good strategy, sort of to your first point. And we also hear from navigators, like, we all think about this as an economic imperative, and it is. And a lot of the reasons that people take up programs like this is for their children, to be a good example to their children and their grandchildren, like the example that we shared. And so I think reaching parents is a really strong strategy. And I forget your second point.
The other one was just around the conversation around student debt. So we were listening, the statistics show how much debt is out there, and that many students drop out as a result of that.
Yes, and obviously these programs help prevent that, and we are going to start engaging in conversations. Some colleges already have debt forgiveness programs as people sort of re-engage. So we will be engaging around those conversations to make sure it's not a preventive.
Right, and that's the thought. It's just alignment of conversation.
Yep.
Thank you very much to our presenters. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Next item on the Committee of the Whole agenda is presentation on student enrollment data. This presentation is a report on student enrollment data provided by our partners in the Center for Educational Performance and Information, or CEPI. This is an informational presentation and no board action is required. We welcome our presenters, Mr. Tom Howell, Director of the Center for Educational Performance and Information at CEPI, and Ms. Lauren Paluda, the Analytics Team Manager at CEPI. Presenters, welcome.
Thanks, sir.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Dr.
morning.
Rice, thanks for inviting us. Board members, thank you.
Appreciate you being here, Mr. Howe, Ms. Paluda.
It would be most impactful if I brought my glasses for this conversation. All right. My understanding is you have interest in enrollment trends. We're here today to talk about those trends, specifically focusing in fall of 2020 and fall of 2021. I'm Tom Howell. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Educational Performance and Information. We are a bureau within the State Budget Office, and we're pleased to be here to talk with you today. I'm joined by Lauren Paluda. She's our PK-12 Data Manager at CEPI. Very steeped in all things data, and really, I think, is the impetus behind our ability to provide you a lot of metrics and information in a timely fashion. While we cannot quantify where things are headed, we can share what we've seen in patterns beginning probably a decade ago and leading up to fall 2020 and 21. We'll begin by providing context to that data that we're seeing now and provide information to help answer these key questions that you see on the slide. So what's happening with enrollment trends in Michigan, and how has enrollment shifted across the education system? We're going to jump right into that. So what's happening with enrollment? At risk of spoiling the entire presentation, I'm going to give you the conclusion right at the start, okay? For more than a decade, we have watched the broad demographics in Michigan mirrored in enrollment, meaning the decrease in population of students and our student-aged children in our state has been mirrored in the enrollment trends in public education. Fall 2020, we saw the largest observed decline in Michigan's enrollment. Fall 2021, we see signs of recovery, especially in the earliest grades in our system. Data in the next several slides will really start to support these statements, give you a little bit more context, and help explain why really we need to see another year or two of data before we jump to conclusions about what's really happening. So before we talk about that enrollment, I wanted you to take a look at the overall population of kids or children ages 5 to 17. From the U.S. Census Bureau's American Community Survey, data pulled back to as far as 2010 has shown an average annual decline in school-aged children of about 1.2% per year in the decade from 2010 to 2020. The rate of decline you can see in that trend was a bit steeper in the early half of the decade, really at about 1.5% in the first 5 years, and then that slowed to about 1% over the last 5 years. So on average, if we run the numbers, it's about 1.2%. So jumping right into student enrollment from there, we're going to talk today about overall student enrollment counts. That is inclusive of pre-kindergarten, K through 12 students, special ed transitional services for students ages 18 to 26 as well. This is inclusive, the data we talk about today is inclusive of our local education agencies and our charter schools in the state. Looking over the past 10 years, you see in this trend line a gentle reduction in enrollment by roughly 10,500 students per year over the past decade. That's a little less than 1%, roughly 0.8% to be more precise, going on in our enrollment processes. You see a noticeable change, though, in fall of 2020. That's the year our enrollment fell by about 4.13%. That was about 61,900 students. It again is on that slide for you to see there. That's a seemingly large number. It's certainly larger than we're accustomed to seeing, but there's a lot of factors that contribute to that. So I need you to remember, we've got this slow population decline that's been happening for a decade. That accounted for about 10,500 students on an annual basis. We had a large shift in our kindergarten enrollment, little over 13,000 students fewer enrolling in kindergarten in fall of 2020. And we also saw a fairly large dip in our preschool programs that year, about 15,800 fewer students or parents making decisions to enroll their children in preschool opportunities at that point in time. There were other shifts of students entering and exiting the system as well, and Lauren and I will talk to that a little bit later in the presentation. You also see on this slide that in fall of 2021, overall enrollment rebounded by about 0.41%. Not a huge rebound, but a rebound nonetheless, about 5,800 students. So we've not yet returned to pre-pandemic levels. And again, there'll be patterns that we'd like to talk about where that particular tract is moving. The remainder of this PowerPoint is going to unpack these numbers by looking at different subpopulations and patterns. At the end, we'll be happy to speak more to those patterns and entertain your questions. So first, I want to zoom in a bit tighter to K-12 enrollment. Again, you see the same gradual decline happening for really more than a decade at this point. K-12 enrollment itself fell by 3.2% in fall of 2020. Unlike total enrollment, this enrollment fell ever so slightly again in fall of 21. So what does that mean? Boy, state level numbers. It's hard to tell what's happening when you look at statewide figures. There was a drop, that is true. So what we're going to do is zoom in here a little bit and try to look at this in groups. So we'll distill the data, we'll take it down to tighter grade spans. What you're seeing on this particular slide is that we have early elementary, which is grades K through 3, depicted by a blue line, middle elementary, grades 4 through 6, depicted by an orange line, junior high, grades 7 through 8 in gray, and high school in grades 9 through 12, depicted by yellow. Now, as you look at the slide, you might notice a fairly smooth pattern among most of the grade spans, but there's a noticeable difference. It's that blue line. Depicted in that blue line again is the early elementary grades K through 3, where we most clearly see a break from a linear trend, and we see the most dramatic source of our K-12 decrease in fall 2020. There is variation by grade span, certainly by individual grade levels, and we're going to focus in the areas of greatest change in the next few slides. So we talked about those early grades, K through 3. And I didn't bring you all the grades today. To be clear, we didn't see dramatic changes in all grades. So we're going to focus today on the most dramatic impacts. If you're interested in further information about each individual grade, you can go to myschooldata.org. These charts that you're seeing today are primarily coming from that source, and you can explore that on your own and see what happened in 4th grade, if that's where you're most interested, okay? So zooming in on kindergarten today, we see the big story in K-12 for both fall 2020 and fall 2021. The largest increases or decreases and the largest increase. 2020, you can see in the numbers, kindergarten dropped by 11.32% in a single year. That's about 13,600 fewer students in kindergarten entering in fall 2020. This single grade accounted for nearly a third of the overall K-12 drop, leaving grades 1 through 12 with a combined drop of about 2.4% from the overall decline. In 2021, kindergarten increased by 7.7%. That did not return us to pre-pandemic levels, but it moved us in that direction. All right, thinking back to that total enrollment picture, we zoom back out, we bring in preschool. This is actually where we saw the largest swing happening in the public education system. While pre-K enrollment fell steeply in fall of 2020 by 33.1%, it rebounded even more steeply in fall of 21 with a 36.47% rebound. That didn't quite get us back to pre-pandemic levels. We're still down by a little over 8%, but it certainly showed areas where parents continued to initially have concern and then looked back to the public education to provide servicing and programming for their kids. So from the data, what I want you to understand from that is our earliest learners, K through 3, is where we saw the largest dips in enrollment. And very specifically, pre-K and kindergarten is the two areas where it seems the pandemic most dramatically impacted enrollment patterns, at least according to the data. All right, staying with total enrollment here, you see in this slide, a program designed for our oldest learners in our system. So these are programs for students participating in special ed services or transitional services ages 18 to 26. I personally thought this was a surprise. The margin of growth that we were seeing in this program did end in 2020 with a dip of about 4.21%, but it stabilized roughly the next year, still with a minor dip of about 0.25% in fall of 2021. As being the oldest learners in the system, transitional, learning life skills, employment skills, I thought this was an area where we might not see as much impact. All right, while not part of overall enrollment, we shift to shared time student participation in the public education system in this particular slide. Shared time students, for those that are not familiar with the term, really are students that participate in homeschool or non-public school settings, but are still engaged in receiving services, specifically academic services, from the public education system. In this graph, you see a couple noticeable patterns. There's quite a bit of growth that was seen from 2010 through 2016. It then plateaued. Those programs seemed to plateau at that point. There was actually 2 years of decline pre-pandemic, and then a sharp decline, like the rest of public education, in fall of 2020. In fall of 2021, they did recover and move back in the other direction, and we did see that the numbers of shared time participants has exceeded pre-pandemic numbers at this point. Before we talk about subgroups, we really need to, again, look at census data, right? What's happening in Michigan? While the census data does not mirror the way we gather data about our students in our state, it's a close approximation. So I just wanted you to briefly see this trend, and then we'll move right into enrollment trends by race ethnicity. Similar to the declines in population trends, we see declines by race ethnicity. With this slide, you can see it fairly closely tracked against what you saw in the population. Similar to that school-age population, we're becoming much more diverse in Michigan, and it shows in our public education system. The population of students who identify as white is decreasing, and decreasing at a faster rate than non-white peers. The most notable gains really have been seen in our Hispanic Latino community and with students identified with 2 or more races. Again, very similar to the trends that we're seeing as an overall population of students in ages 5 to 17 throughout the state. Of note, in 2020, really all racial and ethnic categories declined with the exceptions of students who identified with 2 or more races. So again, mirroring the census trends. You know, it's important to take note of how well the system is serving other subpopulations of students with varying needs. We're not a system of public education that only serves general education students or students without various additional needs. What you're seeing in front of you is really the enrollment count and the proportion of students that are receiving special ed services, and that has greatly increased in the last few years ahead of the pandemic. Despite the total count for this group dropping in fall 2020 by about 7,500 students, the proportion of students participating in special ed continues to increase, but at a very slow rate. In fall 2021, we saw enrollment increase in this category by about 900 students. You see that its percentage of total student population is still approximating and tracking where it was prior to the pandemic. English learners is a growing segment in our education system. And while student enrollment did decrease slightly in 2020 by about 3,500 students, as a percentage of student population, it has remained steady. In fall 2021, that data tracks back up with an additional 1,611 students re-enrolling in 2021. So to recap, I just threw a lot of data at you, and I'm sorry. Data can be boring. It can be very exciting. I hope this was a little bit exciting for you. So where we are now, what's happening to enrollment? Very briefly, we've seen a decade of gentle decline in alignment with the demographics of school-age children in Michigan. That tracking, we've actually been behind, right? Our public education system has declined by about 0.8% per year. The age 5 to 17 students in our state actually decreased by a little over 1.2%. So we're actually holding our own in terms of our alignment with overall population trends. In 2020, we cannot deny it, we dropped in enrollment. We've seen gains, in several grades. Specifically, I think we pointed out the largest gains happening in our early learning environments, but we have not yet surpassed where we were pre-pandemic. Population and metrics, as we continue to talk today, matter as you look at enrollment patterns. While we haven't returned to pre-pandemic levels, we have started to see where we're seeing health in the system and things returning to a more normal trajectory. I'm going to let Lauren really dig into the data a little bit deeper and talk about how some of these enrollment trends have come out in different ways across the education system.
Thanks, Tom. So underneath the enrollment totals that Tom just shared, several different shifts are happening. Shifts of students into the public education system, shifts of students out, and then shifts within different entities and entity types and settings. And so we'll consider a few of those shifts on the next few slides, starting with shifts in students exiting. So far, we've been focused on student count, which by definition are students who are continuing in their enrollment as of the fall pupil membership day. This slide now instead looks at a snapshot of students reported as exited in those falls, specifically exited to non-public and homeschool. Falls 2018 and 19 are included on the slide and show to some extent the relationship between the public and non-public systems in the years prior to the pandemic. To the extent that you can even gauge that relationship by looking at students who are moving into and out of or between those two systems. Mm-hmm. For scale, in 2018 and 2019, these students made up about 0.25% of all students reported in the respective falls. We saw a big jump in fall 2020, particularly in exits to homeschool, which is the gray portion of these bars. In fall 2021, we saw a drop in those numbers, though not yet to pre-pandemic levels. Because this graph is, again, a point-in-time snapshot, it can only count for movement in one way. It doesn't account for the observation that some students who exit to non-public and homeschool do eventually return back into the public education system. Very early analysis suggests that students who exited to non-public and homeschool in 2020 may be returning at a higher rate than similar exiters from 2018 and 2019, about just over 40% as opposed to just under 25%. So for both of these reasons, fall 2022 data will be of note to look at. We'll watch to see what happens with the counts of exits, as well as look to see if students are returning into the public education system as the public education system itself returns to pre-pandemic norms. Such shifts out of public education can be counterbalanced by shifts in, or the influx of students who are new or returning into public education. And we saw shifts here too during the pandemic. Tom has already talked about the most important one. And so the slide here you've seen before, but it's again the kindergarten data, where we saw the single grade, the biggest drop in fall 2020 and the biggest increase in fall 2021. We're repeating it here because the kindergarten trend did have such a big impact on the overall trends. And so any conversation about the shift in enrollment really needs to include a conversation about kindergarten. That's not to say, though, that students only enter as, again, newer returning students into kindergarten. In fact, in the 3 years prior to the pandemic, about 47,000 students were entering grades 1 through 12. On this graph, that's shown as the first bar, and so you can see then that the influx of students slowed in fall 2020 and then increased and actually exceeded pre-pandemic levels in 2021. Interestingly, these two shifts are roughly equal in magnitude. Fall 2020 influx was about 21% slower than the pre-pandemic average. Fall 2021 was about 20% higher. This again then begs the question, what comes next? And so we'll be watching for when and where those rates stabilize in the years ahead. With this slide, we start talking about shifts within public education. As Tom mentioned earlier, the total K-12 counts he was sharing before included enrollment both at traditional settings and charter settings. In this graph, we now split those apart. The traditional counts are represented by the blue and the charter by yellow. And I'll start first by talking about the charter. You can see a somewhat steady trend in the couple years leading up to 2020. And then over the past 2 years, charter enrollment has increased about 3,000 students, with the bulk of that happening in fall 2020. Over the same time period, traditional enrollment has been declining. And so taken together, these two trends mean that charter districts are accounting for a growing proportion of public education. More precisely, in fall 2021, 10.8% of K-12 students were enrolled in charter districts compared to 10.0% in fall 2017. Another shift of interest is in shifts to full virtual settings, and that's what this graph now shows. Full virtual enrollment is represented in the green bars, and you can see that the number had been ticking up but then jumped quite a bit by about 8,000 students in fall 2020. Full virtual enrollment increased again in fall 2021, though at a slower rate than we had seen in 2020. Taken all together, in fall 2021, 2.1% of K-12 students were enrolled in full virtual settings. You might be wondering, and it would be a great question, how are the graphs on the previous two slides related? And that's what this graph now tries to get at. We take the total enrollment at full virtual that was shown on the previous slide, and here break it up by traditional and charter districts. Full virtual traditional enrollment is the dark green, and full virtual enrollment at charter districts is the light green. In the 3 years prior to the pandemic, you can see that the share of students was about evenly split between traditional and charter districts. Then in fall 2020, both types grew. Full enrollment grew at both traditional and charter districts, but actually grew at traditional districts a bit faster. In fall 2021, that trend then reversed, and growth was a bit faster at charter districts. Because of the way that these trends have bounced a bit, in 2021, we see closer to, but not quite back to, the even split of full virtual enrollments between traditional and charter. So as with other shifts, it'll be interesting to see how this graph tracks out in the years ahead. So to recap, how has enrollment shifted? This slide summarizes some of the highlights we've seen and continue to see. Shifts in students exiting to non-public and homeschools, shifts in students entering both kindergarten, especially kindergarten, but also grades 1 through 12, and shifts in how students are moving to to charter districts, as well as to full virtual settings at both traditional and charter districts. Overarching all of these points is the need for additional years of data. The pandemic was still a factor in the decisions that parents and districts were making in fall 2021. Fall 2022 and beyond, we will be watching for either a return to pre-pandemic norms or the emergence of new long-term trends. And the same can really be said for enrollment overall. And the question that's most on everyone's mind, where is enrollment headed? Well, as Tom said at the beginning, we can't quantify that. But to close, let's zoom back out. This graph again shows our K-12 student enrollment over the past 10 years. The blue line is the actual enrollment trends that we've been discussing. The gradual decline mirroring demographic patterns was interrupted by COVID, leading to a drop in fall 2020. Fall 2021 saw some contributing factors shift back towards pre-pandemic norms, particularly with rebounds amongst our youngest learners. However, this graph also includes a yellow dashed line that shows how enrollment might have tracked if not for COVID. And you can see, and have heard today, that enrollment has not yet fully or evenly recovered. We are eager to see additional years of data, as it's too soon to differentiate between the short and long-term impacts of the pandemic on enrollment. Thank you for the opportunity to share our team's work with you today, and we will open the floor to questions.
Thank you very much, presenters. It is 11:14. Board questions or comments? Dr. Pritchett, was that a bid or was that a request for recognition?
Still absorbing.
Okay, very good.
We moved rather quickly today,
Yeah.
Dr. Rice. I apologize if that was too much.
It's all good. We appreciate that. Board questions or comments? This was a very thorough presentation.
Yeah.
There's a lot of there.
Dr. Rice, I have a question.
Very good. Ms. Lipton, to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was very, very interesting. I wanted to know, in your disaggregation of data with respect to enrollment trends, are you looking at all in terms of the timing at which the timing in the year, I should say, that you're seeing enrollment spikes? My understanding is that 90% of the state dollars get appropriated during as a reflection of the fall count days, and then only 10% is well. First of all, my question is that still the case, the 90-10 split, in terms of 90% based on the fall count and then 10% based on the spring count, or is that proportion changed?
No, that proportion is still consistent, so you are correct.
Okay. So have you disaggregated the data in terms of when you're seeing the spike, and also possibly looking at it as a reflection of a district charter, traditional, as a percentage of their budget that is spent on marketing to get students to enroll?
So we don't see dramatic changes. I apologize, Ellen. Are you finished?
Oh, no,
Okay.
that's just beyond the scope. I mean, I understand that that's getting very, very granular, so it may not be data that is even able to be gotten.
So we didn't bring that data with us, Ellen, but I will say that we traditionally do not see a large spike in enrollment during the supplemental count date, which happens in the early spring. Enrollment remains rather consistent throughout the year. We do see shifts across districts and across PSAs in some areas of the state. But overall, there is consistency in the enrollment of the population throughout the year. Most of the slides that you focused on today, though, were based on fall enrollment, which is when we take our official count in our state. But I can assure you that the trends would not be different when looking at supplemental counts in the spring. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Lipton. Ms. Tilley.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. This is very helpful and insightful. I could not imagine being a parent in the pandemic as far as having a school age. I'm a parent, but having school age children, because I would probably have them at home myself. So that's a tough decision. I don't know if you guys touched on the fact, as far as with enrollment declining over the years, the trend, one of the things is that people are having less kids. When my parents were growing up, it was common for probably families that have a dozen or more children, where my children are growing up in a world where that's, somebody has that many children, it's like, wow, that's a lot of kids. And then you have infrastructures in districts that were set up to hold all of these children, and now people aren't having that many kids, so now schools are having to downsize and close. I know in 2015 in Southfield, it was a huge issue because enrollment declined and schools had to consolidate. And we had 3 high schools at the time. We lost one of those. Well, actually, Southfield, Lathrop, and Southfield High School had to consolidate and merge and create a new school, Southfield A&T High School. My daughter graduated the first year, which was, of course, very confusing. It was just all over the place that year because it was a new high school. So, do you see that though? I know in Southfield it's an older community, and like I said, people aren't having as many children. So, not only did the high school have to do that, but other schools, middle schools, had to do that as well. Do you see that across the state where schools have to consolidate or close because of the decline in enrollment?
So there have been closures in the last decade. I didn't quantify that for today's meeting. It's something that we could take a closer look at. It is natural that with a declining population, there is fewer kids being served by the system and probably the need for fewer facilities, perhaps. But I don't have an opinion about whether or not our current situation, the current decline, necessitates that closure. That's a much more complex conversation. But I would say, yes, our observations are consistent with yours. We certainly have seen fewer students based on census data, fewer children available to become students in our state based on census data, and a corresponding dip in enrollment as well. And that is not even across the state. Some communities continue to grow, others continue to contract. So I think you'd have to look community by community to get a better handle on that locally.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tilley. Dr. Pugh, to you.
Just a couple of questions. I want to just make sure I'm clear. When we say virtual, what do we mean by that?
So full virtual education really includes students that are participating remotely in all aspects of their learning. We've got different models, different delivery models within the virtual learning community, but predominantly those students are receiving their instruction online.
Okay. I just asked because 2018, 2019, that would have meant something totally different, 2020, 21, and today. So that's why I'm trying to understand.
A little different than cyber. If you were thinking more cyber school, it's more inclusive in the online learning environment. Okay. That was my first question. And then when we look at the numbers, they're very close. I mean, are those, have we taken into consideration the margins of error? And I'm looking at like a slide on page 13, slide 25. Okay. I'm looking at the full virtual tradition, full virtual charter. Is that a difference?
Yeah, I do not have like a confidence interval for you on these numbers, but I would say that roughly we were seeing that even split. And then there's just been so many different things that have been shifting in the nature of the data, and that you're correct that there are probably is a margin of error in these numbers, but the trends that they speak to, I think, hold up in the different ways that we've been looking at the data.
Okay. And then I guess I would go to like slide number 24. And to Board Member Tilley's point, when we talk about closures, I you know, and in the absence of Dr. Albrecht, I will point out that though we have had this decline in students, or decline in population. Michigan has seen one of the most the greatest proliferation, if not the most greatest proliferation of charters. And at the same time, like we said, there's this population that has a decline that we've seen over the years. And so I guess my question is, and I think I already know what the answer is, but I just want to put this out here, is we have this great proliferation of charters, and we don't have traditional schools in a lot of neighborhoods anymore. And this competitive nature has driven that. So I guess we would expect to see some increases, and have we, in future analysis, will we look at those types of things to see, what is even available? Is there such a thing as choice, or is that just it for the children to go to, or parents to send their children to? So that's my other thought.
Thank you, Dr. Pugh. Any other questions or comments?
I do want to say,
Please.
so, and there was data, and I need to send this, where I did see where there was data that was reported maybe in Chalkbeat that showed an increase in African American enrollment from 2020 to 2021. And I know we didn't have that breakdown, but maybe if we could consider those numbers and those trends as well.
We're happy to get you those.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else for the good of the group? Hearing none, we thank our presenters. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Next item on the Committee of the Whole agenda is presentation on school finance research studies. This is a presentation on the major school finance research studies that have taken place in Michigan since 2015. This is an informational presentation, and no board action is required. We welcome our presenter, Dr. David Arson, Professor of Education Policy in the College of Education at Michigan State University. There will be a PowerPoint presentation, and Dr. Arson is here. Dr. Arson, welcome. We've just introduced you. Please come to the front. And Ms. Cook is working to load your presentation now.
You're right on time, in fact, a little early.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of describing our meeting. We welcome you, Dr. Arson, and we appreciate your being here today and your willingness to present on this important topic of school finance. We could think of no one more capable to present on the topic than you today.
So I'm between you and lunch, right?
No.
No? Okay. And so I'm going to test the slides here to see if we can. Okay. All right.
When you're ready.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation and for the important public service work you do. That's a sincere expression of appreciation. It really is important. Thank you. As you know, the state constitution assigns this body the responsibility of providing guidance on school funding. There's no place I'd rather be right now. Because these are things that I think about a great deal. I've been asked to provide some historical perspective on Michigan school funding as a backdrop for current policy discussions and deliberations. I'm happy to do so. The U.S. public education system emerged in the early 19th century, and it took its modern form during the progressive era at the turn of the 20th century. That system was remarkably decentralized by international standard. It was built around local school districts, okay, that had authority for the governance and funding of schools. The U.S. Constitution provides no role for the federal government in education. Each state has its own, in its own constitution, has an education clause that gives it responsibility and lays out the expectations for school funding. And historically, the states all delegated that responsibility down to the local districts. Okay? And as I said, these local districts were very unequally situated in terms of their ability to fund schools because their only source of revenue was local property taxes. Okay? But the system grew, and it grew up, and it accompanied the richest nation in the world by the 20th century. Okay? After World War II, there was increased attention to the fact that this way of funding schools through local property taxes was unequal because local communities had such different ability to pay. Okay? More recently, there's been a focus through in the last 20 years on outcomes from schools, through the test-based accountability era, No Child Left Behind, and so forth, and an additional focus on the revenues that schools would need in order to meet the expectations, the outcome expectations that the states were setting. Okay, so both of those things became critical responsibilities of state governments. Okay, and litigation pushed them in that direction. Okay. Okay, so by the 1970s and in the more recent area, we've been looking to state governments increasingly to provide strong, equitable, and adequate funding systems in the U.S. Okay. So I'm going to start right here to talk a little bit about our current system. Michigan's education funding system was established with the passage of Proposal A in 1994. Okay. It's had two primary goals. One was to reduce property taxes, and the other was to reduce disparities across local districts and their funding. Proposal A largely accomplished these goals. Okay. I would say that if you know, this group may know the political story behind the emergence of Proposal A. A remarkable arrangement on the one hand between Debbie Stabenow, who led the Democrats in the Senate at the time, and John Engler in the governor's office. There was a High Wire Act in which they eliminated the funding for property taxes for Michigan schools without anything to put in its place. And then over a period of just a few months, they had to come up with a new system to fund Michigan schools. The Democrats had 6 folks on the committee, the Republicans 6 folks, and together, those folks who had a lot of experience in state education and appropriations committee, it was before term limits, they worked out a deal. And those folks felt very proud about what they had accomplished years and years later. In fact, in 2003, David Plank and I wrote one of the first, my colleague at MSU, one of the first reports on the Proposal A system. We had a little conference, invited Stabenow and Engler back. Engler said nice things about our report. Okay? But he also said something interesting, and I want to share it here. And that was that as he looked back over his time in public life, Proposal A was the most significant accomplishment. Who knew? It was a moment when people went beyond bipartisan divisions and found a path forward to do something positive. Okay, so that was back then. Let me just say a couple things about this. Proposal A, that funding system. It created the foundation system that we use now to fund Michigan schools. It created the foundation that was the primary source of revenue for all Michigan school districts and charter schools. When we did that, we developed a foundation system in Michigan. These foundation systems can be designed different ways in different states, do it. But we took away the ability of local school districts, the voters in local districts, to set their operating mills. We gave that responsibility over to policymakers in Lansing. Okay, I want to say that the Proposal A, 1994, it predated the era of test-based accountability. It predated No Child Left Behind. Okay, so one key point here, that at no point have the foundation allowances been calibrated to the cost of providing education services. Even as the state was increasing the expectations over time. And secondly, despite, notice, I'm saying that Proposal A was a great accomplishment, but two key gaps. They didn't adjust the funding to the costs, and secondly, the Proposal A did not address school facilities, which are funded still exclusively by local property taxes with voter discretion. Okay? They just didn't have time to get to facilities when they were designing it. Okay. All right. Sometimes I'm asked, is this kind of centralization good or bad? And really, I'd have to say is it depends on what the state does. Okay, it depends on what the state does. And on this count, I think we could have done better. And looking back, we could have done substantially better. I think the state abdicated for a while some of its responsibilities that voters entrusted to them when they passed Proposal A. Okay. So I want to try, could I ask for some water, please? Okay. So I want to take a moment to reflect on a number of different studies that have taken stock of our funding experience historically. Okay. I put up here 7 studies. Okay. The first, and I'll say just a word about each of them in turn, and there'll be another slide in which we look at them in constellation altogether in terms of their content. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. And the first one I want to address here is the report by, that came out of the Upjohn Institute in Kalamazoo, okay, in 2015. If you don't know, these authors, Hollenbeck, Bartik, and Ebert, are first-rate researchers. They are PhD economists. They publish in academic journals. They are a terrific resource to have in this state. I use their work. I respect their work. Okay, I will say that they set out to assess in this report how a better designed school funding system could promote improved student achievement. That report noted a decline in the inflation-adjusted value of the foundation grant that Michigan children were receiving in the years before their report. Okay? It also noted that Michigan is falling behind other states in its funding of schools. It noted a poor match of the revenues that schools receive to the cost of providing the services, especially for high-need students. Okay? And it directed attention to the problems of declining enrollment financially for school districts. They noted the big payoff in terms of student achievement and economic benefits of an improved funding system. And finally, they called for a legislatively authorized adequacy study. Okay? The next year, the state authorized an adequacy study. In December 2014, a lawmaking deal secured sufficient votes. It was designed right at the end of the session to get sufficient votes for a road construction bill. They passed a authorization, a statute, for the first time in Michigan, quote, a comprehensive statewide cost study to determine, quote, the sufficient resources for students to achieve state academic standards. Okay, that statute passed by the Michigan legislature, put forth very detailed specifications on what the cost study must do. The base cost, the variable cost, at-risk students, English language learners, special ed, regional costs, transportation costs, capital facilities costs. It was, in that statute, a recipe for a good and needed study. Okay? When the state put out an RFP to implement the study, it could have been a little bit better because the guidelines for this, what the contractors who would do the study were specified. They asked for a method for doing the study that was too blunt. It was the successful school district method. It was really not calibrated to do what the statute had recommended. And I can go into this in more detail, but the study did not include charter schools. It did not, was not able to address cost variations due to special ed. It did not address capital facilities. Good intentions in the statute, but it was not really well implemented. I thought, nevertheless, is a step forward. Okay, but things still had to be polished up. And in the final years, the following year, I think in part as a result of dissatisfaction with some of the elements of the state authorized study. Oh, I'm going to come in before that. In 2017, Lieutenant Governor Calley had an education task force that focused on special ed. I'll say that this task force assembled excellent researchers. One of the people I know that's on it was Mike Conlon, the economics department of MSU. He knew this stuff well. Okay, as a whole, the Cali study had noted the poor outcomes of Michigan special ed students. It was lagging behind other states. It noted that the U.S. Department of Education had drawn special attention to the state of Michigan as needing assistance in special ed. The report focused not only on finance, it talked about pedagogy of teaching and professional development, but it's especially focused on the funding of special ed in Michigan. Okay? And it noted the incredibly inequitable levels of funding that exist for special ed funding in Michigan. I'm going to come back to this in a moment. Okay? Let me jump next to the next study, the School Finance Research Collaborative study. That is an adequacy study. It was a superior adequacy study. The collaborative brought together education leaders, business representatives, philanthropy, academics. I will say that one of the academics on that was Mike Adonisio, my colleague at Wayne State University. He does the same kind of work as I do. He's an economist, PhD economist. He was somebody who was in the Engler administration when Proposal A passed. Okay, that made me feel good that Mike was on that study. I'll just say that I'll say more about the SFRC in just a moment. Okay, but I want to move on and say that the following year, I wrote a report with Tanner Delpier and Jesse Nagel. I'll just say that this came out of a doctoral ed finance class. In spring of 2018, I had a class. Only 4 students showed up. They were good students, and they said, we don't want to do a term paper. We want to do a report on Michigan school finance. Both and Tanner and Jesse stuck with it and wrote this report with me. They're both from Michigan, and we set out to, on the one hand, provide a primer on how this system of funding works. And we also looked at the revenue trends over time. Notice, the adequacy studies say this is what every student needs, but it doesn't. The adequacy studies did not document trends in funding over time. We did that. Okay, we documented the trends in funding over time in Michigan, and we also looked at and saw a sharp fall off in how Michigan funding was comparing to other states. We looked more carefully at the funding of at-risk students, at special education funding, and capital facilities. We did all those things that I just described before the SFRC came out. But as we were coming to the end, the SFRC came out, so we had to take a look at it. I wasn't connected with the SFRC study at all. So we read it, we looked at it, pretty good. Wanted to find more information on it, we got it. okay? And I have to say, it's a pretty good report, okay? But the SFRC did not estimate how much it would cost to implement its recommendations. We did that, okay? We can come back to this. So let me just say, if we look at this constellation of studies, these are the studies, Upjohn, insufficient, you can see the areas. The columns here are things that they addressed in their findings: insufficient base or total funding, revenues poorly adjusted for cost, special education, capital facilities. Only 2 of these are adequacy studies, right? And different organizations. Oh, I didn't mention the Ed Trust study. Okay? Ed Trust is interesting. Ed Trust is a national organization, nonprofit. They came to Michigan. Ed Trust Midwest is a branch of the national organization in Michigan. This is an organization that focused primarily on low-income students, students of color. And when they came on the scene in Michigan, they focused especially on test-based accountability and teacher quality. Okay? They were big advocates of the teacher evaluation initiatives. And over time, my sense, they didn't have much to say about funding. And over time, they became focused on the fact that the test scores weren't very good. The NAEP scores in Michigan were not very good. And in more recent years, they took up and followed in different people here, but also noted the funding problems in Michigan. Each of these X's up here were mentioned. I'll just make, finally, the MSU study by Jesse Nagel. He was a co-author in that Crossroads report. He wrote the special education chapter in that report. Okay? For his dissertation, he expanded it and made it better. So his data now on special education, he built on Cali, is the best we have so far. He had an all-star committee. He had Catherine Strunk, Scott Imberman, Charlie Ballard. You know, he got the numbers, right? I'll come back to this in a little bit. Okay. This school finance collaborative research study, I'm going to say a few more words about the collaboratives. I'll just say, anytime you do an adequate study, you want to have more than one method. They had 2 good methods that they used. And the first to incorporate charter schools. Here are some recommendations of that study. Again, they estimated that the base cost funding for the typical student in Michigan was $9,500. Okay. They notice that base funding is associated with staffing ratios for nurses, for counselors, for social workers, and so forth that are supported by research. They have weights. This is a system that on top of that weight. So the variable costs here are in the rows down below. Okay. English language learners, there are the white of categories there are for different degrees of language deficiency. So for the poverty weight, you say 0.35, that it recommended that the at-risk students would get an additional 0.35 above the foundation allowance. Okay, and you can read each of these going down the line. If we look at special education, we see the weights for mild disabilities, 0.7, weight, moderate, 1.15. I'll just say that special education is very costly, and these put the weights in context. I'll just note also that they called for universal high-quality preschool. You can see there, $14,000. That's a high cost, okay? And it's associated with the small class size in preschool, okay? These were the recommendations, and I'll just offer these reflections, okay? It's a very strong adequacy study, okay? It provides a durable framework for Michigan's school finance policy. The cost estimates, you can say, oh, that was way back then, right? The cost estimates are easily adjusted over time for inflation. They embed, right, the prevailing salaries and compensation of educators in 2017. Okay, there are some areas where it needs additional work. Okay, it's not perfect. The study itself recognized that they needed to do provide additional attention to transportation and high poverty concentration. They've already done, I believe, some additional estimates on transportation. I want to say here that I believe the rural isolation component needs additional work. Right? The study sort of didn't clearly disentangle the cost associated with small districts, right, and rural isolation. I think the key issue here is rural isolation. We need to spend more time looking at that. The study, finally, did not address school facilities, okay? All right. I just want to note in context, these are things from the Crossroads report. Michigan's, because the adequacy study said, here's what we need. It didn't say where funding is relative to that. Okay, we had already been doing the work at MSU when the study came out. And this is what we showed, that we were 50th among states in total revenue growth between 1995 and 2015. We were 48th among states in per pupil revenue growth between 1995 and 2015. That decline in the early years, this is all for inflation adjusted. By the way, those rankings are the same whether you adjust for inflation or you just do nominal. It's not based on that. Most of the decline came after 2001, right? There was a period from 2001, 2002, to about 2015, where we went like this and then down. There was a 60% decline in inflation-adjusted at-risk funding per pupil in Michigan. Shocking, right? And a 20% decline in the share of Michigan's income. This is the investment rate, or some people call it tax effort. The share of our Michigan personal income, state personal income, that we're devoting to K-12 education, that declined 20% between 2002 and 2015. All right. I want to take, if it's all right, if I take just a moment to say a few more words about special ed. So that's the big picture. I want to say a few more words about special ed quickly, a few more words about capital facilities quickly, and then bring us up to the present. Okay. So we understand this special education issue a little bit better. The federals, the federal government established 5 minutes. Okay, we can come back to this if you like. I'll just put it this way, that the feds kick in 10% of the funding for special ed. The state, under the Durant settlement, kicks in about number 30. It means that 60% of the funding for special ed has to come at the local level. Okay, here's the problem. Local districts can't increase their millages to pay for this, but the ISDs can. ISDs can levy special education millages. Whenever they do, it helps out the local districts to pay this, right? But the problem is that the ISDs vary dramatically in their ability to pay their taxable value per pupil, and just like Lieutenant Governor Calley noted, that this inequality, as well as the state imposes caps on the ISD millage rates based on what they were in 1993. Totally arbitrary, okay? So there's big variation. So the example here is at the bottom in this graphic associated with ISD special ed millages, that Genesee would have to levy 4 times the mills of Charlevoix-Emmett to generate the same revenue per pupil. Okay. This figure here shows you Jesse Nagel's more updated special ed figures on average, right? Students, special ed students, require money coming. So because the services have to be provided under law, right? Cost cannot be a reason for not providing special ed services. The local districts are obliged to do it. If they don't have the funding from special ed, from the feds or the state, they got to take money out of their general education, which they do on average. Statewide, that's about $512 per general education students in the state. In some districts, it's over $1,000 per general ed student. Okay, 1,200 in a number. Okay, keep your eyes on the ball. Now we've collapsed the foundation revenues across districts. Okay, this unfunded aspect of special ed is generating more variation in the discretionary revenue that's available, affecting both special ed and general ed students. Can I move quickly to facilities? These facilities, they have not received the attention in these studies that they deserve. They're important. They're important for student opportunities, for achievement. Each of the bullets in this slide are supported by peer-reviewed academic research. okay? We know that facilities are an important determinant of student health and attendance from good epidemiological studies. We know that it's an important factor for teacher turnover. We know that these facilities are important for entire communities. Okay. Michigan, we fund these facilities entirely by local property taxes. We're one of 13 states to provide no equalizing state aid. We have inadequate facilities in many districts. They create unequal opportunities for students and unequal burdens for taxpayers. Let me just show you this. This is an example to illustrate the problem. Suppose these communities all wanted to build the same elementary school, $20 million elementary school, funded over 20 years with bond funding. What would the millage rate be needed in each of these communities to pay for it? Okay, these are all similarly sized communities. Okay, Ludington, with a taxable value per pupil of about $500,000, could do it with 1.47 mils, or a tax on an annual tax on a property of $147. Okay, meanwhile, Carrollton would have to levy 22 mils to build the same building, a tax of over $2,000. In fact, Carrollton cannot build this building because the required millage rate is above what the state would permit at 13 mils. Okay. We all know that these facilities, I'll come back, I could say more about facilities in Q&A. I just want to say that a lot of what I've said is doom and gloom, but it's looking up, folks. Since 2015, there's been modest growth in inflation-adjusted funding, particularly in the last 2 years. Right? State policymakers, thank you, increased the base funding, and the foundation did a better job of increasing the, and by the way, that, as you know, the base funding, the foundation is the same for everybody now, including charters, except for some high-end districts from when Proposal A passed, hold harmless. We've built up the funding weights for at high-risk kids. We've made an expansion of pre-K funding. Basically, the pre-K funding is now on a par with the foundation allowance. And the ESSER funding has helped. I want to just say a couple words about the ESSER funding. I'll slide through this quickly. You know this material. You know all of this, right? Yes. The one thing I want to note here is that this ESSER funding is a lot of money. It can be used on many things, many of them pandemic, but it enables the schools, after a long drought of low funding, to address some gaps in the state funding over the previous 15 years, and facilities and student supports in particular. A key feature, notice, when the New Deal passed, we had federal stimulus, but schools didn't play a role in that. The ESSER, the federal stimulus funding now is interesting in the sense that the schools have played a key role. The money is directed, if you were looking for a way to get the money to communities all across the country, every community in Michigan, we have it here, and we're giving these local communities an opportunity to decide how best to use it. Okay? That, to me, is a good thing. I look at the executive budget of 2023 and say, good. All this time, we've been trying to make progress. We are making progress. The proposed foundation allowance is a 5% increase. We're still not to the recommended by SFRC. We've got more equitable rates. The suggestion for the weight for at-risk kids, 11.5%, that, if you don't know, that 11.5% bump, that compares to 0.35, right? It's 1/3 of what SFRC would recommend. What academic studies show us is actually an accurate card for academic. That 11.5 is what the legislature marked the at-risk funding for additional when Proposal A passed. But we fell short of it all this time. Until this proposed budget, we get back to what we were promising when Proposal A passed. A much higher increase in the special education reimbursement rate, and additional resources for school facilities, mental health, and teacher recruitment and retention. I would be happy to say more about all of these things. I'm going to stop.
Thank you, Dr. Arson. We appreciate your presentation. Board members, questions or comments? Mr. McMillan.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm glad that you said the proposal A, the centralization of education dollars, was a good or bad. You kind of said it could be, depends on what the state does, because I was one of the few, and I actually wrote a letter to the editor and was condemned by some Republicans back in '94 opposing Proposal A because of what it would do. It would centralize power at the state, and they, have imposed high-stakes testing and whatever whim they want to do to get reelected. It no longer is really based on what's best for the kids. It's based on what's best for elections, and it's a real problem. So I was glad that you said it could be bad, because I believe it was. Now, since your report in 2019, and it only went up through 2015, you mentioned that, your good news was that there has been some increase in funding. What results should we expect due to that increase? And are you going to update that study? And has more money meant better results?
So these are good questions. Thank you. And I'll just say, we broke off, different funding trends had different terminal points. When we were making comparisons across states, we had to go with 2015 because we had to rely on federal data, and that was the most recent available. Okay, and so that was why we stopped there. We looked at for other things we could use state data and show trends that were more recently. To your point, right? It's too early. The studies haven't been done yet on the consequences of increased funding, this growth after a long period of decline more recently. What I will say, though, and this slide right here shows it, that Michigan is a place, the academic research is quite clear now on the link, the powerful causal link between funding and student outcomes. When those students did the Crossroads report, I said, look, people are going to say money doesn't matter. You have to do a comprehensive review of the existing literature, and you have to write it in a way that average folks can understand. That's what it is. Okay, so on this point, I'll just say that we know really well. And some of the most important studies to establish this point were done right here in Michigan, right? By Leslie Papke, by Columbia University, by a number of scholars. I will say that I will be very interested to see the answer to the question you just posed, Representative, Trustee McMillan, board member.
Okay. Right. So, I mean, the result could be that it hasn't improved outcomes. I mean, it's possible, right?
We'll
so,
see.
I mean,
that would be a result that's different from the results that we have from prior eras.
And probably the study, the person conducting the study will make sure that that's not going to be the result, because it would hurt the narrative. Now, the 2018 collaborative study, so 300 Michigan educators. So it's amazing that 300 Michigan educators would indicate they want more money for education. I find that amazing, don't you? I'm surprised that was the result. I mean, that's what the study drew upon, and based on that, it's just astonishing that they would want more money for their system. You find that amazing or not?
So I understand the concern. The goal here is to find a level of base funding that enables students to meet base funding and additional variable funding that allows students to meet state standards. There are different approaches. Now, scholars, you probably know, have developed different approaches for answering that question. They're doing this in the context of fierce discussion within the profession on how to do this in an unbiased way, where it's not just self-interest, right? The people who develop these methods are doing it with folks who are saying, you've got to be careful of that concern, okay? The academics who do the design of these systems okay, have to pay attention to that. Otherwise, they don't have a ground to stand on. They know Professor Hanushek's arguments, right? They know them, right? And they have to be resilient to the criticisms that these are just self-interested, these are folks who can't imagine a different system done differently that's more efficient, okay? Trust me, I have taught more students, I think, Professor Hanushek's ideas that are critical of adequacy studies, right, than any other professor in Michigan. When I do that, I do it from a sympathetic point of view. And when the students write on their midterms, they have to know these criticisms. Okay? And they have to be in a position where they know that if you, despite these criticisms, we still want to know what's the best estimate of what the base funding is. We still need to know how much more does it cost to educate a poor kid? Okay? Asking educators how much how much they need. Notice what they do is in these panels, and that was only one of multiple methods for determining this outcome. Okay, what they have to do is say they're not saying how much, put a dollar figure on it. They're saying what are the resources needed? What's the class size? Right? What's the count? How many counselors per kid? What the staffing ratios in special ed? They don't put a dollar. They don't ask the educators. They don't ask them how much money. Right? They don't talk about the salaries with the educators. They say what are the resources that are necessary in the schools. After you do that, then you slap on the salaries, and they use the prevailing salaries in 2017. Okay. Now, you could say that this isn't perfect. I would agree. But you want to do, what's the best you can do? Try this method, try that method. Do you get roughly similar results? We know that we have to have some bet. We can't just say every student gets the same amount of money. Some kids cost more. How are you going to get there? I think that there's...
If we could
Yeah,
go to
I know that we
question.
want to keep moving, but I'll just say that when I was in the legislature, all you'd have to do is say, I want a study that shows this, and people would do it. So I know that, and those that don't complete the narrative and do what the narrative is, we need more money, they don't get asked to do another study. So they know that, and they make sure that their studies show exactly what those that hire them want it to be. So I think that those biases are certainly in all of these studies, quite frankly.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments by board members? We're at 12:05, and we have another presentation and vote prior to lunch. Dr. Pugh.
I just want to thank you again, Dr. Urson, for all of your work and for this presentation. I guess my question to you is, you presented to us the ESSER funding, and you talked about the 2023 executive education budget, and you went pretty quickly. So I just want to just ask you, do you think that makes us whole, and not only the amount, but the time in which the dollars that on slide 18 has to be spent? If you could give some comment on that as well.
So, $6 billion is a lot of money. It doesn't fill the hole that existed from previous 15 years between 2001 and 2015. Okay. It moves us in the right direction. Notice, so I would say that one way to look at this is Michigan policymakers, for whatever reason, sort of let us down for a long period. Right? The federal government came in with this money. Local districts are now able to use that non-recurring funding over a relatively short period to address some of the shortcomings that existed from the state policies for the previous years. We'll see how they do it. They'll do it in different ways. And frankly, because I am a supporter of local control, I am not troubled by different communities, right? And coming out of the pandemic, right? In an era when there's been so much controversy, when they've previously been making cuts to programs and staffing, and contentious discussions about masks and school opening and closing, to have a more uplifting discussion. What do our communities want from our public schools? How can we do that? Can we get to, that's local control, and I approve it. What I would say to this is, that blip, though, right, is transitory. To get to the recommendation for a durable system that's equitable and adequate, right, we can't rely on that. Mm? That requires state policy that's been signaled in the executive budget, right? Moving closer for the foundation base, for the other areas. Let me just go back here for the weights, okay, for special ed in particular. Notice that executive budget for the first time suggests the state come up with some money, $1 billion here, to start thinking about the state's role in school facilities. Okay, let me just mention here, and educator retention, student mental health. These are things that aren't strictly within the SFRC study. Those new resources are beyond SFRC. Good, because they're part of what we need to address. So I will say that the specification of the details, right? How do you do the facility funding? How do you allocate for these everything? All right, that gets worked out in the legislature. I have some ideas. I would love to be asked, how do we design this funding for special ed? How do we design this the policies, all right? But that's left to be determined. I would say, and as a step forward, this is important. Our funding growth, adjusted for inflation, has been increasing since 2015, right? Slowly, right? Very slowly, and a little bit bigger bump in the last couple of years, okay? We're on that same trajectory. We're still way below. I was going to put in a slide here that
Question is to the governor's fiscal year 23 budget. Are you supportive, and would it be helpful?
I am supportive of the governor's budget.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Dr. Pugh, do you have any other questions for us? Other questions?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you have other questions?
The only other question, you said that I had another question that came up. Are we closing the gap now? Because Michigan has been at the bottom of the rung. And so we may improve, but are we closing the gap? Because all states got funding out of that $6 billion.
There's different ways of defining the gap. If you ask, are we still at the bottom of the league tables relative to where we were in funding growth in 1995, we're still at the bottom in the most recent data, which goes across states for the 2018. Okay, are we going to move? We're getting closer to West Virginia. All right. So, we're in the right direction. The ESSER funding will help make up for some mistakes in the past. It won't solve the long-term funding problems. For that, we need the kind of steps that are located in this budget. The details are essential. Let's get to work on it. Let's come out of this pandemic, joining together.
Quickly.
To provide the services, the education service that every Michigan kid deserves. It's an exciting time.
Thank you. And so to your research, the initial research was through 2015, 95 through 2015. Your subsequent research was through 2018.
Yep.
It's 4 years dated. There's a lag associated with the federal data,
yep.
The ability to compare
yep.
across states. And once that data is in, given the increases, one would expect some changes
yep.
in
yep.
In our situation.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
This will be the source for lots of studies, lots of dissertations. You know, to Member McMillan's point, we'll be able to study this with good causal statistics about the consequences of the different funding increases that have taken place over time.
Thank you very much. Ms. Snyder, to you.
Just a correction in terms of like local control and the concepts of a constitutional prescription of education, a public education system. It's not about what we want necessarily out of a public education system, but what is constitutionally prescribed and how that local school district needs in order to provide those educational services are different. I just think that's important to note in what you said, and thank you for presenting.
Any other questions or comments? Ms. Tilley, no. Ms. Lipton on the on Teams, I don't see any question. Yes, no.
No, Dr. Rice, thank you. I don't have a question, but I would like to thank Dr. Arson for his excellent work. And I would just like to note, not necessarily studies, but a number of polls that have been conducted over the years in Michigan, bringing in the parent perspective and parents across the state consistently want adequately resourced schools, schools with healthy buildings and healthy environments for their children, even to the point where they will agree to tax themselves more in order to provide that. Unfortunately, our system doesn't allow for that, but parents want what is absolutely the best for their children and have recognized that resources do in fact matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lipton. And I also would like to thank Dr. Arson for his presentation. I know of nobody who can so comprehensively speak to school finance in the state of Michigan, bar none. I would like to just note two things, that the data between 95 and 2015 is historic. It is comparable data across the nation, and our revenue growth, both on a total from a total revenue perspective and a per pupil perspective, was horrifyingly small compared to other states. Last in the nation in total revenue growth, third to last in terms of per pupil revenue growth. We have a long way to go before we've addressed the damage of that to a system. And of course, some children have gone through the system during that very, very difficult period of time. The governor's $4.5 billion increase to public education, if approved, would begin to rectify a good part of that damage. But much of that is non-recurring funding and has enormously important uses. The $1 billion in infrastructure modernization fund, to which you referred, hugely important. The $361 million associated with mental health support. I share that we are truly supportive of the governor's budget, but we are in recognition of the fact that problems that are created over a couple of decades are not fixed quickly. They take time. And then I just share one other thing, and this is not for a back and forth, it's for the benediction, and then we're pivoting to the next presentation. But the people who do the research on school finance, as you point out, stake their professional reputations on that research. So too, the lead in the 2017 Special Education School Finance Study staked his reputation. That is to say, Lieutenant Governor Calley staked his reputation to that report. And that report shared that special education in the state of Michigan is underfunded by approximately $750 million. In your world, in the world of higher education, the world of research, we talk about triangulation. We talk about different studies coming together around particular conclusions. And that's what these studies do. They come together around the same conclusion that we are underfunded. There may be differences in magnitude, but there aren't differences in the base conclusion. We appreciate it. We appreciate you. At 12:17, we're going to pivot to our next and final presentation prior to lunch. Thank you, sir. You be well. Next, board, the next item on today's agenda is approval of educator preparation program moratorium extension and discretionary authority to accept proposals. March 8th, 2022, the State Board of Education viewed a presentation on the current status of educator preparation programs in Michigan. The board is being asked to approve the recommendation during today's meeting. If there's anyone in the room who wants to offer public comment on this specific item, please complete a public participation form and immediately give it to Marilyn Schneider. Presenters are Dr. Delsa Chapman, Deputy Superintendent of Educator, Student, and School Supports, and Ms. Leah Breen, Director of the Office of Educator Excellence. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Rice, and good afternoon, Board. As we present the status of educator preparation providers here in the state of Michigan, the intent today is to seek approval of our prior recommendation of the Educator Preparation Program moratorium extension, along with discretionary authority to accept proposals. In that regard, we will now move forward with the presentation by Director Breen.
Good morning, Board. Much of this is review of what we had last month, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the presentation in order to afford you the most opportunity to discuss and decide. But just as a quick reminder, what are education preparator providers in Michigan and what do they do? They are approved by either the Michigan Department of Education or State Board of Education, and they prepare and recommend educators for a variety of different credentials. Up there are the types of providers that we approve in Michigan. There are 48 approved unique education providers in Michigan. They offer 27 different types of credentials. Those credentials are offered by two main types of providers. There are 31 unique traditional preparation providers, and they offer the programs that are listed right there. And there are 13 unique alternative route providers, and they offer programs primarily for teachers and administrators. There are a couple of other unique providers. We have 3 that offer teacher leader programs that allow access to the advanced professional certificate. And we have 1 that offers administrator enhancement programs, which are essentially professional learning programs. So as a reminder, the approval process for new preparation providers, it's a 4-step process. There's an application process that can take up to 1 to 3 years, depending on how long the provider needs to be able to meet the requirements of the application. There's the initial approval. It's always a 5-year period to allow for enough data collection in order to attain accreditation, and that is part of the full approval process. At the point of full approval, they work toward national accreditation, and that accreditation process is about 2.5 to 3 years long. So as a reminder, last month we talked about, does the number of providers affect the number of teachers? And this has been a speaking point of the board in the past. The answer is not necessarily. There's, as a brief history of traditional and alternative route provider approval, it was interest in the quality of teacher preparation and a belief that there was oversaturation in the field that led the state board to limit the expansion of traditional providers back in 2005. Since 2005, 9 traditional route providers have closed entirely or ceased their programs. In 2009, state law established alternative route providers in Michigan. Since then, 13 alternative route programs have been approved and 3 have closed. As a reminder, we also have 3 approved operational alternative route programs that are just for school administrators. So what that means is that the number of providers that we have had overall has been pretty static from 2011, 2012. You'll see some minor fluctuations there. Yet the number of enrollers and completers has started at 23,000 some years ago and is currently at $12,000, which is $12,000, 12,000 individuals. It is important to note that significantly more preparation programs could result in a reduced quality and reduced retention of teachers. One possible reason for that is that they don't receive adequate technical assistance and monitoring from the Department of Education, because we do have the limited capacity to provide support for institutions, particularly in the newest part of the process. There's a lot of support needed for initial approval and onboarding. So in May of 2019 was the the last resolution on this topic. At that time, the State Board of Education extended the moratorium for both traditional educator preparation institutions and alternative route providers, and gave the state superintendent the authority to review and approve high needs programs for a period of 3 years till April 30th. So here we are. Based on the flexibility in that resolution, the state superintendent issued a request for proposals in January of 2020 and subsequently approved 2 new alternative route providers. We have discussed these 2 providers at the table a couple of times, but as a reminder, one is the Detroit Public Schools Community District On the Rise Academy, and the other is a new Paradigm for Education program. And with that, it brings us to the recommendation for discussion. That recommendation that we have for you today is that the state superintendent will continue to review and consider approval for alternative route preparation programs focused on meeting identified high needs. And the State Board of Education is asked to consider a recommendation to extend the authority for the state superintendent to review and recommend traditional preparation programs focused on meeting identified high needs for a period of 5 years. This recommendation allows the possibility of meeting specific educator workforce needs while allowing for reasonable limitations on new providers to ensure that we have adequate technical assistance and monitoring. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman, Ms. Breen. If we could have a motion and a second and get it teed up for discussion. Have a motion, please.
So moved.
A motion by Dr. Pritchett.
Second.
Second by Mr. Strayhorn. Discussion.
What's the motion?
The
specific motion.
The specific
Words.
motion is it is recommended that the State Board of Education extend the authority for the state superintendent to review and recommend traditional preparation programs focused on meeting identified high needs for a period of 5 years. This was done 3 years ago for 3 years, if I recall correctly. And this would be the extension, now that that time has elapsed, or is almost elapsed, for 5 years. So we have a motion and a second. To you, Mr. McMillan, for question.
The idea of 5 years, first of all, can this board tie the hands of future boards? There's a principle that, as far as legislation goes and other things, that, could you make it 50 years? I mean, why is 5 years, or should it just be the term, that so that the next board can reevaluate it? So that's my first question. Is this a legitimate motion for 5 years?
So the answer is it is a legitimate motion. Nothing precludes this board or future boards from amending it. Nothing whatsoever.
Well, but it would require 5 votes as opposed to an affirmative versus a affirmative the other way. So I wasn't sure.
It requires an affirmative now, and it would require an affirmative then.
Okay, so is there a moratorium? The subject line said a moratorium extension. I don't see the word moratorium in the motion. So can you explain to me how is this a moratorium?
Would you like to?
Sure. So in the past, the board has used the word moratorium to describe this. In this instance, it would be a moratorium on essentially a wide open application process where any provider could apply for approval at any time. It would allow the state superintendent to exercise some limitation and focus on those identifying or meeting identified high needs.
Well, what's the harm in just letting people apply?
Workload and capacity of your public
So there's
service.
that many people, there's that many colleges that would apply and provide additional teachers if we didn't have this moratorium?
Well, as a reminder, it's not just colleges and universities, it's also educational organizations, nonprofit companies, for-profit companies, and LEAs. And
So if this is a big deal that we don't have enough teachers, why in the world would we want to limit? I would think that, we just got $6 billion or, I don't know how much of it the state can take. Usually you can carve out some for administrative or, reallocate resources. Are you telling me that that's the only reason we don't want the opportunity for more teachers to be credentialed is because we don't have the capacity here?
Could you please share the slide of the number of teacher prep programs by year? Okay. So the number of teacher prep programs by year has remained relatively similar over the last decade, as there has been a plummeting of the number of young people studying to become teachers. That number was at 23,000 in 2011-12. It plummeted in just a few years to 9,500. And our most recent statistics are that it's back up to a little bit more than 12,000. So there isn't a direct relationship between the number of programs and the number of education prep provider institutions. There has been some movement within each of these numbers. In other words, we've seen a diminution of certain establishments, of certain EPPs, cessation of certain EPPs, and a movement into the marketplace of others. But this number has been relatively constant, notwithstanding the plummeting in the number of people who are in these programs. So that's one. Two, the other thing that people need to understand is we have tens of thousands of people right now who are certificated to teach in the state of Michigan who are not teaching. And they're not teaching for a whole host of reasons, the most substantial of which, their view, not mine, this is their survey data, says the most substantial reason is money. But there are other issues, educational supports around teachers, a sense of efficacy, a concern about voice. But funding is the first and foremost, the compensation that particularly our young people experience, which is not sufficient to keep up with their household needs. So I share that with you because we believe that there's a value to opening up this opportunity periodically, but not opening up floodgates. So we would do, with this moratorium and extension of discretionary authority, we would open this up immediately in the coming months for those would-be providers to address niche areas in the teacher preparation market to provide applications. So we're looking at particular geographic areas, for example, particular populations of individuals who might be able to become teachers, support staff members, for example. We're talking about diversifying the profession. So it's an interesting juxtaposition here because the moratorium refers to floodgates, but the extension of authority refers to an opening up of our ability to look at application in high needs areas.
Okay, I don't understand, so we've got 38. So if you open the quote unquote floodgates, you might get 10 more, or you might get 50 more. I mean, what if we vote no? What do you think would come, the applications? Are we talking hundreds?
I'd be happy.
Are we talking 10?
Yeah, we don't know how many. We know that the last
Well, why don't
time
we see?
had, the last time we had 10 applicants.
Correct.
Okay, so we had 10 applicants and we chose 2 after a substantial review. If you were to vote no on this, what that would deal with would be traditional programs. It would not deal with alternative programs. You have authority over the traditional. The state superintendent has authority over the alternative programs. So your vote against this resolution would affect traditional programs.
It would give them a competition, which they hate. Right?
Well, they have competition. Could you go back, please, to the slide on the providers? Thank you. Could you? Nope, you had it there. One. Thank you so much. So 31 unique traditional prep providers on the left, and 13 unique alternative route preparation providers. So there's already the competition in the marketplace.
Why not 35 or 40?
Right now.
We want to protect them from additional competition. There's no reason.
Actually, quite the contrary.
No
if I could, one way or the other, there will be an opportunity for alternative route providers to provide additional applications to become EPPs in the state. That's my authority, and I'm going to open that up in the coming months. Your authority as a state board is over traditional educational prep provider programs. It is on traditional programs that you're being asked to vote today.
And how many would apply that are traditional? Hardly any, right?
Right.
I mean, it's all going to be on alternatives. So what's the harm? I mean, I don't know. It seems like it's just protecting special interests. There's these, big universities that have a lot of money and a lot of endowments and a lot of power. And so, in order to keep them protected and not have any competition, we shut the door on, something that the floodgates might be 2 more or 4 more. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, let me try to make it make sense. This is a vote on traditional prep programs.
Right.
It is not a vote on alternative prep programs. Alternative preparation programs are going to have the opportunity to apply for EPP status in the coming months. That's under my authority, and I'm going to open up an opportunity in high needs areas for alternative prep programs to apply. This is solely associated with traditional prep programs. There's absolutely nothing to do with constraining the marketplace in support of traditional prep programs. Ms. Snyder, then Ms. Breen. I'm sorry, Ms. Snyder, then Ms. Porter, and perhaps Ms. Breen subsequently. No? Okay, Ms. Snyder, to you.
So the alternative programs, opening those up, which is under your authority, the idea there is that's probably going to be the greatest impact in the short term for the teacher shortage, correct?
Actually, I think the greatest impact on the teacher shortage in the short term is for our legislature to pass the governor's teacher recruitment and retention recommendations. That will have the biggest impact on the teacher shortage.
I'm staying focused on the discussion that we're having right now, which is traditional versus alternative route providers and this ask, right, the motion that's on the table. So I'm asking specifically in this decision before us, you just differentiated. I want to say out loud, that regardless of what we're doing here, is it of your opinion that alternative route providers increasing in the coming months, as you suggest, will have the greatest short-term impact?
No. That's not my perspective.
Okay.
My perspective is that in the short run, the number of education preparation providers will have no impact on the teacher shortage whatsoever. If you could go back to the slide about the number of teacher prep programs per year. That slide, juxtaposed against the number of people in teacher prep programs, shows that there's not a relationship between the number of teacher prep programs and the number of candidates. The number of teacher prep programs, 39 in 2011. The number of people in teacher prep programs, either enrolled or completers, 23,000. And you go down to 2016, 2017, 5 years later, it's cut more than in half, and the number of providers has dropped by precisely 1. So there is a disconnect between the number of prep programs on the one hand and the number of students studying to become teachers on the other. There are other variables that are responsible for whether people are going into the programs, number 1, whether they're staying in the programs, number 2, whether they are completing the programs, number 3, whether they are taking the MTTC, number 4, and going into the profession, number 5. And what we know about the literature is that it is first and foremost about compensation for young aspiring teachers. It is secondarily about issues around supports for them in the classroom and their sense of efficacy in the classroom. And then less still, issues of, and much more so for more veteran teachers, issues of voice and involvement in decision-making. So you take a teacher like Aaliyah Porter, initially she's concerned, does her salary pay her bills? Subsequently, once she gets her feet on the ground and is able to, handle her bills and is able to handle her profession, she's interested in her voice and her impact on decision-making for her children.
So 2 more things, and just one of those 2 things, circling back around to my original question, I just want to make it more clear because I'm still trying to find clarity. Does this decision on the table today, traditional or alternative, the vote, our authority, your authority, does this decision directly related to the moratorium impact the teacher shortage? And how?
I believe that in the short run, it will not. It takes a fair bit of time to grow a teacher. And planting a seed today and expecting a harvest today, particularly the harvesting of a teacher, is a fool's gambit. In the midterm, long term, yes, I think it can have an impact on the teacher shortage, but not immediately. A provider takes time to get on its feet, and then people have to enroll in it. They have to go through the program. They have to complete the program. They have to take the MTTC. They have to begin the profession.
The second thing is it would appear the trend is on the rise and recovering. So my only question is, do we have 2020, 21 data? Why is that not listed for the teacher enrollment?
We get the enrollment data reported for the colleges and institutions, and it is always a period of time behind.
How much time? We're in the spring of 22. When do we expect that number?
We use the Title II data, and that is typically about 2 years behind. So the next Title II report, we would get the 2021 data. I'm not sure what month of the year we get that report.
But if you could translate that, it's federal funding, it's federal data, and
Part of it is, yes.
and it lags pretty substantially behind state data.
Right.
Other questions? No. Okay. Very good. Other. I beg your pardon, Miss
Tiffany.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Miss Kelly.
Can we get a chart with the programs and the variances? Like how long, are the programs dependent upon which program it is and different things, different information about it?
So a chart, program, who's served by each program,
How many people have completed the program?
and the length of time.
And how many people enroll in the program versus how many people complete the program?
We can share data with you. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? We have a motion on the table. We have a second. Any more discussion? Questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none. Ms. Schneider, a roll call vote, please.
Lipton,
Yes.
McMillan,
No.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
Snyder,
No.
Strayhorn,
Yes.
Tilly.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much, Board. It's 12:41. We will break to lunch until 1:30. At 1:30, we will begin again with a resolution from Dr. Pritchett regarding NASB, our vote on the meeting minutes, and then movement into public comment. Thank you. Have a good lunch.